There is a concept that people talk about. It's called a segula. And I wanted to set up a little bit of clarity about a segula as compared to Siyata Dishmaya. So the relevant text for this is the Gemara in Megillah. The Gemara says, Daf Vav, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Im Yomar Lecha Adam Yogati Velo Matzasi, Al Tame. Lo Yogati Umatzasi, Al Tame. Yogati Umatzasi Tame. Only believe one formulation. I toiled and I found a mitzvah. The Gemara says, Hani mili b'divrei Torah. This finding is true for understanding Torah. Abel b'masa u'matan, when it comes to parnasa, siyata min shmaya. For that you need, that's a siyata dishmaya issue, which Rashi says, v'yesh yageya ve'ena motze. A person could toil and not have this fine. And even regarding Torah, it only applies to understanding, but to remember, siyata min shemayahi. That again is siyata dishmaya. So let's get clear what we're dealing with. We have a person toiling in Torah, trying to understand something that is difficult to understand. And then he gets what the Chazal referred to as a mitzvah. A mitzvah is something that you find without toil. You just bump into it. So there is a yogati, I toil, and then there's a matzasi. I found it, so to speak, without the toil. So you're dealing with a surprising separation between cause and effect. Typically, we would think of investing a lot of effort as being causative to the outcome. She studied hard for the test and she got 100. But that's not the way it works with Torah. Torah does not have Torah cannot be contained in a human being. In fact, there's a Gemara that tells us that Achilas Hager was approached by his uncle, Adrianus, who said, you want to study Torah? Why didn't you just study Torah? What did you have to become a Jew for? And he explained to him that it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. Torah is given as a gift. Torah is given as a gift. That means that if you break your head over trying to understand a Tosfos, you will be given a gift of understanding. Not like a biology or some other subject where you invest effort and then if you have siyata dishmaya, you'll understand it. That's not the way Torah works. Torah works, these two are separate. There's a yagia, that is the entrance fee, and there is a mitzvah, like you found something on the street. And Rosh Shiva Zatzal said that if you're doing whatever it is that Hashem wants you to be doing, so that your maximum yagia is being expended, then you'll find it the same way. In other words, it doesn't have to be that the Yagia is over that Tosfos. The Yagia is putting forth significant effort in the service of Hashem. So whenever you separate the means from the objective, you're dealing with what might be referred to as a skula. Because it's not simply, I am doing a hishtadlus in a certain area, and if I'm granted siyata dishmaya, then I will see success in the area that I am putting in effort. And if I don't have siyata dishmaya, we're meaning a Kodesh Baruch Hu has chosen that that's not the best thing for me, then I can put effort in a particular area and not necessarily achieve in that area. Torah is different. But Torah, the only way that a person can gain any Torah is if it's given to him as a mitzvah. So that it is not a case of you struggled and therefore you understood. You struggled and that was the necessary price to pay, and Hashem therefore gave you the mitzvah. And that, Rav Yitzchak taught us, happens every time. I mean, and certainly anyone who has ever struggled over a ktos knows that you put in effort, and then suddenly it starts making sense. And you just don't know where it came from. And the don't know where it came from is because it came from a place that is metaphysical. It came from a place that is beyond the natural course of effort. However, says the Gemara, if what you're trying to do is remember your Gemara, oh no, that's not a mitzvah. That's, you put in effort, and if you have siyata dishmaya, you'll remember. If you don't have siyata dishmaya, you may not remember. But it's not like understanding what it is that you're trying to understand in Torah. To understand what you're learning, to understand it, requires a gift. It's a mitzvah, like finding something on the street. So there's no guarantee that you'll remember your Gemara because you struggle to try to remember it. That's Nishus Yata Dishmaya, for which there's tefillah, there's other things that we do that are a zchus for being able to remember. Try not to get angry, because anger pushes away our retention. These are things that we can do to retain. But as far as understanding what it is that we're learning, so that is Yogati, Umatzasi, Tamin. And that's the only thing that you should believe. Any other formulation, yeah, I understood it, I didn't have to put a lot of effort in. Or I understood it because I put effort in. Al Tamin. Don't believe that somebody understood something in Torah because he put in effort. That, we're taught, is not one of the options. So whenever you separate the action from the desired outcome, that would be thought of as a skula. Now, why is this skula, which is discussed in the Gemara, so different than many other skulas? And here comes the key. If you do a skula, I don't know, whatever the skula is, you go to a certain mikvah so that you'll have this and this, or you drink water from some well, and so that you'll have a certain outcome. Things that have nothing to do with each other. There's a certain danger. The danger is that you'll forget that it's from the Ribono Shel Olam. Why might you forget that it's from the Ribono Shel Olam? And the answer is because we are not naturally grateful people. And so having done whatever it is that we did to bring about a certain outcome, we're not going to develop an intimate relationship with the well that we drank from, this special well. We're not going to have an intimate relationship with the well. We did what we did, and we got what we got. When it comes to the Segula of Torah, the idea is that you now have a more intimate relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And because people have a certain resistance to the intimacy of that relationship, to the ever-present nature of that relationship, and certainly to being grateful, you have this issue where people will come to say, no, it's because I worked hard, that's why I understood. So I don't need to have to turn to Hashem and ask for the Metzia or thank him for the Metzia. That's because we are wired with this kind of ingratitude. In Western world, there's a character known as Superman. And Superman is the deity of the Western world, because when a person's in trouble, he calls out to Superman. Superman comes, saves him from his problem, and he always does the same thing afterwards. He flies off. He flies away. He does not come to save me as part of an intimate relationship that he wants with me. He might be very nice about it, comes and he saves me, but he always flies off to the distance to go save somebody else. So the idea that every mitzvah is Hashem's way of invoking and involving himself in our internal lives. He's giving us this Torah, and he's bringing it into us, into our hearts. The same B'libeinu, he's Hu Yiftach Libeinu B'Soraso. When he is doing these things, it is so that we will have a closer and more intimate relationship. Not so that he will solve the problem and then fly off to the distance. Everything about Hashem's involvement is to be more engaged with us, to be more intimate with us, to be more 24/7 with us. And that's why when we've breathed the air of people who are trying to look for Superman, it's difficult to use that same model to try to relate to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, because the last thing we want a Kadosh Baruch Hu to do is to fly off into the distance. But unfortunately, because we have a tendency to ingratitude, we don't notice that it's a mitzvah, and we start saying that, no, I got it because of my efforts. It's not a mitzvah. I achieved it because of my efforts. And Rav Yitzchak has to tell us, Al Tamim, don't believe that, because it'll take you down the wrong road. It'll take you down a road of either relying on your own effort or considering the matter to be impossible. Those two distance you from Hashem, that it's your own effort or that it's impossible. Both of those will take you away from an intimacy with Hashem. And so Yogati Umatzasi, I toiled. I made it seem as though I was doing the steps to achieve the outcome, but the outcome was Hashem, was a Metzia. So whether the outcome through Siyata Dishmaya is that we achieve an outcome, we recognize that Hashem is the one who is enabling us to achieve the outcome, or it is unrelated to the effort, like a Metzia, they are two different ways of Hashem interfacing with us in our lives. Through the Siyata Dishmaya mechanism, sometimes he chooses to have it work and sometimes not, and through the Segula approach, which is Yogati, I put in the effort, and then Hashem gave it to me as a gift, and that is guaranteed. So just wanted to get a little bit of clarity in how it is that sometimes we think about what happens in our lives, we can always track it back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, either through the Siyata Dishmaya method or through the Segula approach.